Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good devil.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family. I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello and welcome to another exciting, jam-packed episode of Box Office Bingers. Ernesto, tell our lovely listeners what they can look forward to this week.
Ooh, there's so much news. We've got so much stuff for what you're watching. But we are also reviewing our foreign film of the month, Right On, from 2023. It's a Chinese film starring the one and only Jackie Chan, written and directed by Larry Yang. This movie is almost like a love letter to stuntmen, and it's gonna be an interesting conversation. What? I'm trying so hard.
You're very apprehensive about that.
No.
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting.
It'll be an interesting conversation to say the least. Plus, we have like a shared watch section of the show. So it's like we have our Whatcha Watchin, and then there's like multiple things that we've also watched together that we also watched.
That we both have seen.
Thank you. I don't know why I blanked on
yes.
that.
two things that we both have seen. Yeah. But yeah, this I think is fairly recently came out on Amazon Prime, maybe like a month or two ago, and it did Right On. It did pique my interest because the fact that it did feel like a love letter to stuntmen, and I mean Jackie Chan is a legend in that category as well, very famously known for doing his own stunts, and kind of his fight choreography is very well known throughout the world. But have you ever seen a movie that wasn't an American movie starring Jackie Chan?
I'd have to look. I don't remember off the top of my head, but
okay,
it's very possible because I used to love his movies growing up.
Okay, I think this is the first time This is the first time I've seen a non-American Jackie Chan movie. Like, I don't remember ever seeing any of his Chinese work through the multiple years he's been doing this. And I think this movie, at least on paper, sounds very fitting for this stage of Jackie Chan's career, of like kind of following a stuntman who was out of his prime and maybe potentially going back into it. But yeah, we're going to be discussing all of that a little bit later on into the show. But I do want to say, if you did listen to our bonus episode, which we went over our Oscars recap, we did mention that we were going to review the American Society of Magical Negroes with our guest, but that didn't happen. So this is an alternative, kind of focusing on foreign film. And then in the coming months, Ernesto, we have a lot of big movies coming out that I'm very excited to dive into as we finish out the rest of March, going into the spring, and then before we know it, it's summer, and then we got all these summer movies we got to look forward to.
I mean, we're still riding on a high from Dune 2, so
so true.
I mean, we'll I'm very excited for what the rest of 2024 has to offer in comparison.
Yeah. Dune Part 2 is definitely already up there as like, we have a good list, a good starting point for 2024, I say the least.
Set the bar pretty high.
Set the bar pretty high. Before we dive into news, Ernesto, I forgot to mention this. This is throwing this off right on you because I forgot to talk about it. Variety came out with an interesting article saying how to improve the Oscars.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not gonna read it all, but I want to just go over their bullet points and just quickly to see if you agree, since we're just coming off the Oscars, and we also saw that the Al Pacino had come out and said that he's like, hey, that wasn't on me. that wasn't on me to what did he say? He's like, it was a producer's call to not go over the not to go over the rest of the nominations. That was on them. I thought that was very interesting that he pointed that out. But the first thing it says is that they wanted to move it to move it to February because they feel like having the Oscars be the end of all the award shows are kind of lessening the impact of what the Oscars is, because by the time it says right there, by the Oscar night, the sense of mystery is gone because we kind of already know what the movies are going to be winning. So they recommend putting it in February, and they're saying that that they should just deal with the Super Bowl time, just kind of like two different audiences. You know,
and it's very true. You're not really competing. Like, I mean, there's some, like maybe some people who really, really want to watch both, but then they can't capitalize on the movie stars watching the Super Bowl if they keep them on the same night. They really separate those two audiences.
They don't have to put it on the same night, just like a week later. I'm not saying this. Definitely don't put it on the same night. That's suicide for the Oscars.
Yeah, I agree.
don't do that. But definitely like for like a week later, yeah, why not? Like that's fine. The day before even. Well, that's on a Sunday, so maybe not. But like the next Sunday, put the Oscars on. Because over the years we've seen like the Golden Globes is first, then Critics' Choice is next, and then like all the other award shows, and then at the very end we get the Oscars, which I'm fine with that formula, but I can see what their point is. But the next thing they're talking about simulcast, broadcast, and live streaming. Absolutely. That's a big one. 100%.
Get it together.
Are you kidding me?
Get it together, guys.
This should have been streaming a long time ago. I 100% agree with that. Next one, add new categories and more inclusive categories. Yeah, we've been saying this a lot for stunt work. I think this also article dives into having a section specifically for directors in international films.
Oh, okay.
Have that as a separate category rather than just being a all directors category. And then the last point they bring up is I think this last part here is like obviously make it shorter. I think that's always a big one. But they said have some of the awards pre-recorded. So you're still airing them, but it's not live. So like it will be like a 3-minute segment. That's something that happened prior. Some of the smaller end awards, and they specifically point out the shorts. The shorts can be determined ahead of time and maybe show a abbreviated version of their speeches like during the telecast, and you can see the full thing like on YouTube or something. But just so that doesn't that we can keep moving forward with it, which I'm 50-50 on.
No, I am. I see what. I think that's like one of those things, and then if we're gonna cut them out, then let's cut out stuntmen, and then, you know, it's hard to define where that line should be, because it is about these emerging filmmakers being recognized. So I don't know. I'd rather cut out some of the stupid skits and the red carpet shit. I'd rather cut that out than cut out seeing people, deservedly get their awards.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, the red carpet, the skits, that's all part of the show.
Yeah.
It's going to happen regardless. I do see what they mean, though, because even the shorts are hard enough to even find just for the audience, like a general audience, to be invested into those categories.
Very true.
Unless you're seekingly finding them. So if you put them as a, hey, we're going to, like, here's the winner of this and here's them winning. Like, you can still go through the charade, I guess, but like have like just a brief 3-minute segment on it and then moving on. I see what they mean, but again, I agree with you, giving everyone their due because it's a big night and whatnot. Who knows if they're going to be making any of these changes, but I just thought that since we were wrapping up the Oscars, and I thought this article was interesting, of maybe try to improve it or have different ideas moving forward with it. But yeah, it's on Variety if you want to read the whole thing.
Yeah, it is really interesting, especially since they did see an increase in viewership this year. So we are seeing that audience come back to finding the Oscars enjoyable again. Like, as far as like an award show that people will, as live entertainment that people would watch. It was enjoyable this year. We talked about it in our review and in our recap. But this is a really interesting article. I'm curious to see on other people's thoughts on what else can make the Oscars better.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, like Ernesto said, if you haven't already, go back and listen to our bonus episode where we recap all of the 2024 Oscars. It was an interesting one. It was a good one. But with that, we are moving on to a lot of entertainment news that we feel like we've skipped out over the last couple of weeks. It's been pretty quiet, but then all of a sudden, when we're ready for it, it'll come. Don't you worry about that. But after a rough couple of months behind the scenes, the Scream franchise seems to be back on track. Neve Campbell has announced she will be returning as Sidney Prescott for Scream 7. Shocker. Campbell previously exited the franchise over a salary dispute for Scream 6. Along with Campbell's return, Scream creator and writer Kevin Williamson is taking over as director for Scream 7. Williamson wrote the first, second, and fourth Scream movies, and in addition to executive producing Scream 5 and 6. Guy Busick, who wrote the fifth and sixth Scream films with James Vanderbilt, is taking over as solo screenwriter for Scream 7. So, as we know, Ernesto, there was a lot of behind the scenes a couple months ago where we lost Melissa Barrera, I forgot, I think that's what her name is. Then we lost Jenna Ortega. Then we lost the director Christopher Landon after already losing the original directors who did Scream 5 and 6. So what do you think about this new, with this recent news on the Scream franchises?
I mean, it looks like they look at everything, the fallout from everything. They all said, hey, this is our Hail Mary. Everybody pull all your money together because we need to afford Neve Campbell.
Yes.
And you know what? I'm here for it. Let's see, but it has to be written in a respectable way. And she's kind of mentioned in interviews before that, you know, she wouldn't want to do anything that wouldn't stay true to Wes's true vision of what the Scream franchise should be. So this is a very promising thing, and these names and these people who are coming attached to it. I mean, the first and the second Scream movie and 4 are arguably one of the better ones. I'm here for it. This is hopeful news. This is news to see that, you know, maybe the franchise isn't dead just yet.
Yeah, and it is kind of funny because with you losing out a lot of your stars now, I think it was a no-brainer, and I think we had talked about this before. You had to get Neve Campbell back. It wasn't really a question. It was more of like, how are you going to get that done? And this is my assumption. The money that they're saving for not having your two main leads, because especially for Jenna Ortega, who has been on a rise lately, she's going to be charging more to be in your movie. So the fact that you don't have your two main leads anymore, and also you're getting rid of a director that was probably a little bit costly as well because of his work on Happy Death Day and Freaky. Mm-hmm. Now you probably put your money focused on Neve Campbell to come back on a number that she was willing to agree with, and then you probably saved on getting the screenwriter of the previous Scream films as now a director. And luckily for them, obviously he's very familiar with the franchise, so I think that might be an easy transition for him since he hasn't really left. He's just now stepping in a director role.
Yeah, this sounds like absolutely fantastic news. Just now, just to see what else does the cast look like? What does the cast list look like? You know,
right? I think one of the main things is like, what do you do? Well, you have a lot of things. You can be very meta with the behind the scenes stuff that happened, which they've done in the past. You can ignore what you've done in 5 and 6, which I don't think they would do, but you could do that. The approach and who's the rest of the cast is very interesting. I think the next person that should be next is wow, I forgot her name already. Gail Weathers, played by
Patricia Arquette.
No, that was Dave Arquette was there, but he passed away. Well, he not passed away. He died in the other movie. What's her name?
I'm pretty.
She's been in all of them so far. Scream. Courtney Cox. God, wow, that took a minute. Yeah, Courtney Cox would be an interesting. I think that's also the next person you have to have back on.
Well, especially how she ended in the last movie, unless they're gonna set her up to be the villain of this one.
Right. I mean, who knows, really? But I think they might need something to spice this franchise up a little bit, especially with everything that was happening behind the scenes. But I'm very curious to see what happens next. A lot more that to be determined and see. And also, when everything is said and done, will we get like a late 2025 release on this potentially? Maybe early 2026?
They don't need to
I guess
rush
time will
it. They
tell.
don't need to rush it. Take your time.
Yeah, not really. All right, moving on.
All right, moving on. A24's new film. Hereditary and Midsommar writer-director Ari Aster has assembled an all-star cast for his upcoming film Eddington. Joaquin Phoenix, Emma Stone, Pedro Pascal, Austin Butler have all joined the cast. A24, who has distributed all his previous films, will continue to finance and produce the film. While plot details are kept under wraps, this film follows a small-town New Mexico sheriff with higher aspirations. Eddington starts production this March, with Ari Aster writing, directing, and producing. I mean, this is an all-star cast. You got Aston Butler coming off of Dune, Emma Stone coming off of her win. I mean, Joaquin at Phoenix at this point, he'll be riding off of Joker at this point.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal, Last of Us 2. I mean, these are all fantastic actors. They do fantastic work. Ari Aster has proved that he can produce a movie. I am curious about the feel of this movie. It's like, what, because like it seems like it's not going to be a scary movie, but given his past films, we know that to not be true.
I'm not buying that this ain't gonna be a horror movie. I'm just saying that. I mean, that's unless he's trying something new, and has every right to do that. And we're just looking for good movies here for sure. And I think that he definitely developed a huge cast to come on and bring this movie together. Also, Pedro, you got more things? How many more things you got going on in your slate? You just signed up to be Mr. Fantastic. The man stays busy. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not the biggest fan of Hereditary as well as Midsommar, but I respect him as a filmmaker because he definitely makes weird off-ball movies that also give us, in a way, he reminds me of like Jordan Peele, where he's like kind of transforming what the genre is. And I think he kind of developed his own subsection within the horror genre of what horror is. And I respect him for that, even though I might not relate to all of his movies, and maybe enjoy them as much as everybody else does, but I still respect him for what he can do.
I actually, to be honest with you, I haven't seen either of those films. I've heard amazing things. Obviously, Florence Pugh and Midsommar. I forget who's in Hereditary. Is that Nicole Kidman? No,
that's Toni Collette.
Toni Collette.
Yeah. And then Florence Pugh, Midsommar. They're definitely interesting movies. It definitely ones that you have to be in the right mindset to watch.
Oh,
and make sure the kids are not around.
Oh, okay. Well. So not one to show the kids. Got it.
Absolutely not. Unless you want to give them nightmares, then for sure, then do that. But also, it's surprisingly, I know we don't have a graphic for it, but speaking of directors, who's coming out with an all-star cast, Poor Things director just also announced he's very quickly coming out with a movie. Yorgos Lanthimos, who's coming out with Kids Kinds of Kindness. Yeah, Kinds of Kindness, bringing back Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, and Willem Dafoe, and coming into theaters in June, which is we know nothing about this movie. It was just the poster that was dropped. There it is, right there. It was just the poster that was dropped, and there's nothing to go off of this. Just names and colors, and
but it's
that's interesting. It's enough, but also like I was surprised of like, bro, you just came out with one. Now you got another one like in 6 months.
So we already know that's gonna be, and man, already coming out. So meaning they were already working on this when they were doing press and stuff for Poor Things. Like they were like pretty much wrapping up this movie.
At this point, yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. I was more surprised with the release date on it than anything else. I was like, wow, that's very quick. And then he brought back Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe as, now it seems frequent collaborators, as now Jesse Plemons as well. So he's also a great actor. So who knows? This could be also in the conversation for next Oscar season.
Oh, more than
if he gives us anything like he did in the past films, especially with The Lobster and I think he did Curse of a Killing Deer. I don't remember his filmography now. But I know we have it in our rundowns. Of his past work. He did, what was the other movie he did? There it is. He did Poor Things, The Lobster. Yeah. The Favorite. That was the other one. The Favorite, also starring Emma Stone. And then The Killing of a Scarce Deer, which was also crazy. All of his films are very unique. So I think with Poor Things, he has my respect, and I would definitely be watching his next film.
Yeah, he's the one who's got me on board for weird movies. That's like the best way I can describe it. Like,
yes.
Like I'm more willing to watch a weird movie based off the experience he gave us with Poor Things.
Right, and I mean, even with like going back to Ari Aster, Ari Aster, he also gives us weird movies, and this, I feel like this next one, Eddington, will be no different.
Yeah.
With that. All right, so moving on, we have Warner Brother Pictures and Dr. Seuss Enterprises announced that an animated The Cat in the Hat movie is in the works and will hit theaters March 6, 2026. So about 2 years away. Bill Hader will star as the voice of the Cat in the Hat, which I think I like that. I like that call.
I'm here for it.
I'm here
Bill
for
Hader.
it.
I mean, anything he does, I just trust. So
yeah, that's fair.
I trust it.
And he will be joined by Quinta Brunson, Boeing Yang. I don't know how to pronounce that. Exali Gomez.
Sakshatel
Gomez. She played the young woman in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. I forgot her character name.
Oh.
Also starring Matt Berry and Paula. America Chavez, thank you. Also, Matt Berry and Paula Pell will also be lending their voices for the role, and yet to be announced roles. So really, I mean, what your main cast there. So somewhere along the lines, you're going to be casting the two children and Thing 1 and Thing 2, and that's pretty much it, right? Those are your main Cat in the Hat people. So
I guess. I mean, there's already so many Cat in the Hats. Are they gonna? And then are we gonna get another live action after this to match the Mike Myers one?
Alessandro Corleone, the director of Kung Fu Panda 3, and Erica Rin. I should have practiced these last names.
You usually do.
You usually do. Erica Rivenoja. The writer behind Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball 2s will be writing and directing this film together. Warner Brothers announcement teases that there will be plenty more animated Dr. Seuss projects to come by saying that this is the first of, quote, a slate of animated projects that we are developing together that builds out an extensive Dr. Seuss animated universe.
Oh, we're getting the Seuss-verse.
Which, honestly, there's two things about this. One, the first sentence really intrigued me. Warner Brother Pictures Animations and Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Dr. Seuss Enterprises was pretty much making movies with Universal under Illuminations, which they made The Lorax and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And so now it seems like Dr. Seuss Enterprises is now making partnerships with Warner Brothers instead to develop this Cat in the Hat movie. And now I'm also curious when they said they want to build out this Seuss universe. So that means that we are just, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Like you got your Lorax, your Grinch, your Cat in the Hat. I'm sure there's others Horton Hears a Who. I forgot about that. Well, that was an animated film. That was from Sony. That was from Sony, I believe.
Oh, so they just
Fox.
They loan their shit out everywhere. So I guess it doesn't.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was Fox before they lost their animation division. I think it was Blue Skies one. Either way, that's also an animated movie that's out there. I think it's about time that Cat in the Hat has its own animated movie. it was an interesting choice to have a Mike Myers live action version, and I think that one was received so poorly that they did not want to go back there again.
It's like maybe everything should not be live action.
Yeah. But I think that movie came out after the success of How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. So I don't know, but I honestly think it's about time that Cat in the Hat gets its own animated movie. I think it's a long time coming. And I am curious if maybe we are doing something different where we are putting your stories together and making this one big universe. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm here for it if it's done right.
I guess we're gonna find out.
I don't know. I'm curious. I think as very much so as like I think Universal might be making a lot of. Obviously, they're diving into Nintendo projects, so that makes sense. That maybe they don't have time to work on Dr. Seuss stuff, but then Doctor's like, fine, I'll take my efforts elsewhere to Warner Brothers, which I don't know how often they use their animation studios to make movies. So that's also interesting.
And I'm sure I'll end up having to watch it with the kids at some point.
But I like the cast. I like the idea. Yeah. I'm here for it. 2 years from now, we'll talk about it.
I'm sure. Yeah. It's either going to be really good or really bad. It's going to go either way.
But I think this is a good. I think this is a long time coming, so I think this is a good. This is a good move.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, we have a Popeye the Sailor Man. No, that was terrible. Yeah, a live action, a live action Popeye the Sailor Man movie is in the works from Churnin Entertainment and King Features. Churnin Entertainment is a production company that produced films such as Planet of the Apes, The Greatest Showman, Ford v Ferrari, The Fear Street, and the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix. Michael Kahlo, the creator of the series Sexy Beast on Paramount Plus and the screenwriter of The Family, starring Robert De Niro, has been attached to write the script. Now, I am a sucker for the live-action movie with Robin Williams. That's like secretly one of my favorite movies. So I'm here for it. I loved Popeye when I was a kid.
It's interesting that I was reading also like this character was introduced back in the 1920s. Mm-hmm. So he's gearing up to be close to 100 years of Popeye. Also very close to being in public domain. So I think they're trying to maybe grab a movie in there before he enters the public domain.
True.
But after all these years, like he's still kicking. Like I don't think he's like people still know him after all these years. Even though I don't think he's as popular as he used to be, but he's still around in some capacity. So I find it interesting that after all this time, we're looking to kind of bring him back into the fold again. When was that Robin Williams movie? Like in the 90s? In the 80s, maybe?
Let me see.
Like it's been a while since we've even seen Popeye on the mainstream.
It came out
1980. Wow.
Yeah. 1980.
So that's over 40 years ago. Now we're getting 44 years ago. That was that movie. So that's crazy to think about. But yeah, now on the live act, I would peg them to do a animated movie before a live action movie. So that's interesting to see. But now the question is, Ernesto, Robin Williams is obviously no longer with us. But who do you put? Who do you have to play Popeye?
Ooh.
Who's out there today that can be?
How's that go again, Matt? I'm Popeye. I am what I am.
I am what I am.
Let's see. Who do you
I think that's a tough call.
Seth Rogen. No, I'm just kidding.
Seth Rogen. Do you like bring it like it has to be a comedic actor, right? I mean, no way this movie's serious.
I would do Zac Efron in prosthetics because he's strong, because he's big like Popeye, right?
Yeah.
But then you just load him up with you just fucking put some good makeup on him, and then that way he can turn into Popeye when he eats the spinach. I mean,
you know what?
Zac Efron can do no wrong to me.
I'm not mad at that. Also, we were briefly talking about him before the show. I think Glenn Powell can be a decent
Yes.
Popeye.
I actually think
he has the look for
he
it.
he actually has the look better. I would say he has the look better than Zac Efron.
Yeah, I mean Zac Efron. I mean, we know he can bulk up. We saw it in the Iron Claw. I think he might be a little too ripped, a little too big to be Popeye. Even though he can, he can change sizes if he wants to. But I don't know. I think that this could be a fun idea. I just don't know if this has to be for kids, right? This has to be marketed for children.
If it's live action, it's probably not. It's probably gonna be, if it's live action, it'll be like PG-13, middle of the road, like that weird, that middle of the road where it's like kind of for adults, but then it also is kind of there for kids. It's gonna be like that weird gray area in the middle, just so they can maximize on all the money. Like make it adult enough so that adults and teenagers would like it, but also make it kid enough so that the kids would come and see it.
Well, I mean, it has to be because, like, again, this Popeye has not been in the public eye in quite some time now. So you kind of want to guard it to the adults that want to bring their kids to go see this, because some of these kids don't even know who Popeye is.
Yeah, I agree.
So who knows how and this also depends how they're going to deal. How do you tell a Popeye story in this age? Like, do you want to give us a different take on Popeye? You want to just stick to the classic? A lot of avenues they can dive into. You also have fairly an unknown writer, not a lot of stuff in his repertoire of films. So like, he can bring an interesting take to this. I don't know where they're gonna go with it, but I'm here for it. I'm interested.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, I love Popeye, so I'm here for it.
Popeye the Sailor Man. All right, moving on from that. Dan Lin, best known for producing major films such as the Lego Movie, the It films, Disney's live-action Aladdin, the Sherlock Holmes films, Godzilla vs. Kong, has been appointed as Netflix's new head of film. Lin will be replacing Scott Stuber, who recently stepped down from the job. Lin has worked with Netflix in the past, such as producing projects, such as projects. Let me reverse. Lin has worked with Netflix in the past, producing such projects as the 3-time Oscar-nominated film The Two Popes and the just-released live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. With the new job, Lin will be leaving his Ride-Back production company, which he founded in 2007. Prior to founding Rideback, Lin worked at Warner Brothers as senior VP of production from 1999 to 2007. So I think it's easy to say that he's been around the films for quite some time now.
They must be offering him that good Netflix money for you to leave your own company. So
Yes, and it was funny because if you remember, he was in talks of being the head of DC Studios a while back. And it was like he was up for the running, and then he turned it down because he would have to leave his Rideback production company, and he didn't want to do that. So whatever DC was offering him, I guess Warner Brothers, he was like, no go. And then that obviously paved the way for James Gunn and Peter Safran to step in as the co-CEOs of DC Studios. But now Netflix must have been offering a bunch of money, even more than what Warner Brothers was, to then, again, like you said, leave his own production company to now work for Netflix. So I don't know if we're going to see an interesting shift in the Netflix movies that are going to be coming out in the future.
It's very possible, And now Zack Snyder's kind of like living over at Netflix too, and they've obviously, they've worked together in the past. So I'm interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, and also, like, obviously, I mean, Netflix has an interesting record between good movies, bad movies, more popular than the other. Obviously, I think the success of Avatar: The Last Airbender lends to maybe his hiring as well. It's like, look, he's given us some great projects in the past, and I'm very curious if we're going to see a shift in what films come out of Netflix now. It might be a couple of years before that we see that shift, but I mean, so far his track record proves, if anything, that he's done a lot of good. He's produced a lot of good movies in the past, and I think he can continue to do that with Netflix. This might be the thing that Netflix needs to kind of get out of a slump of just saying, "Hey, we have this big actor, come watch our movie," and we're like, "No, we need a little bit more than just a big name to go enjoy your movie."
That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So maybe he can actually put some quality into these films. And I feel like lately, like if you go watch a Netflix movie, it's like a 60% chance you're going to get something that's okay, and maybe a 40% chance you're actually going to really like it.
As we experienced this week, which we're going to talk about later.
As we experienced this week, for sure. But yeah, good for Dan Lin. Again, they must have offered him a lot of money to leave his production company, but I hope he puts his production company in good hands as well. Also, I guess he couldn't work out a deal for him to, you also bring along his production company along with Netflix. But
true.
I guess decisions were made on that front.
All right, moving on. So in an effort to bring more people to the theaters, a number of AMC movie theaters across the country will be live streaming portions of NBC's broadcast of the 2024 Summer Paris Olympics. The move marks AMC's latest attempt into alternate content, where the theater operator recently saw major success with Taylor Swift and Beyonce concert films. AMC's chief executive has talked about looking to alternate content as a way to sell more tickets and to fill more movie theaters in a recent earnings call. Under its agreement with NBC Universal, roughly 160 AMC theaters across the country will get portions of NBC's live daytime Olympics coverage for a roughly 2-week span to ticket and exhibit. These showings will kick off July 27th, the day after the opening ceremony of the Games, and conclude on August 11th. NBC Universal previously announced that the NBC broadcast and streaming service Peacock will be the company's primary platforms for its coverage of the Olympic Games, Paris 2024, scheduled for July 26th through August 11th of this year. I think this is a great move from them, for the obvious reasons that we just listed. I think this is going to be, I'm interested to see what the turnout will be for this. I don't see maybe Beyonce or Taylor Swift, but I think there will be some, and then that'll create a communal experience, like the older or retired people, like maybe they want to watch the Olympics, but they want to get out of their house, and they can go in this enclosed environment, or like maybe a sports team that they want to cheer on somebody who they know. I don't know. A lot of different scenarios can lend to people wanting to go do this. I see this. I do see a lot of potential in this.
Yeah, so do I. It's an interesting move, to say the least. I know in the past, I think it was Regal that did this, not AMC, but they were broadcasting, or I guess live streaming, like the college bowls earlier this year. And so you can go watch your favorite college teams in the bigger bowls in the theater, which I think, for me, watching a sporting event in the theater lends itself very well. Absolutely. So like you're paying for that experience, you're being around people who also want to watch the game. I mean, I guess now normally you'll go to a bar for that setting, to be in that communal setting. So maybe the theater doesn't really lend itself as well as, say, a bar would, because they have a lot more food options and drinks and stuff. So I think if the theaters are now lending to showing live sports on the big screen, I think they might need to beef up some of their food offerings to compete with, say, like a bar, for example.
Well, AMC is perfect. It's really been stepping up their game to do that. I haven't seen Regal do the dine-in aspect, but at least most of the AMCs I go to either have dine-in or they have like upscale, like concession food that you can order. Yeah,
totally forgot about dining, but you're right. Yeah, Regal doesn't dive into that too much, and yeah, there's a dine-in option at Disney Springs that could lend itself pretty well. You're getting served just like a restaurant with the food. It'll probably be like a more louder setting, so them for people coming in and out to giving you more food will be not as like sneakily as they have to been in the past, because they're probably not going to have lights out on this sporting event. True. They'll probably have the lights on, at least a little bit better. But yeah, I think this is an interesting move to air some portions. I'm wondering the cost on it, though. Like, how much would you charge to see a certain portion of the Olympics? And also, like, how long are you going to be in there for?
Yeah.
Because I know some of these are like swimming. It's like 2 minutes and you're done. Like how like, is it like a certain time frame? Is it like a certain event? Like, I'm very curious what comes out of this, and then also how many people participate in this to see if this ends up being more profitable. But I guess something is better than nothing when it comes to getting more people into your theater.
That's true. That is a good point. I didn't think about that other aspect, but Yeah, that's true. I guess we'll see.
I mean, hey, you know what? At least AMC still trying. If you got the time, you got the money, you got the energy, why not just keep trying and see what sticks? They took a chance on Taylor Swift and Beyonce, and that came out to they benefited out of anybody.
True.
AMC got big returns out of that and shoved a whole bunch of people into the theater, and that's exactly what they want. I know, like, Regal has also their fandom events or Fathom events where they have a lot of musicals that would air, that they would have like taping of the musicals that you can't see anymore, and it'll be like a live, it won't be live, but it'll be like you will see an on-stage version of the musical in the theater.
Yeah.
And so I've seen them do that a couple of times as well. And then they also have a lot of animes that would air there as well. So like, I think they're still trying, and I think this is an interesting way to continue to try to bring more people into the theater. And by all means, if it works, let's keep doing it. Like, you might tap into a market that, people might enjoy.
Agreed. I mean, it can be nothing but positive for them, and at least they're trying.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work, at least they know.
Yeah,
they know they're not going to try again for the next Olympics.
Yeah, not doing that one again.
Yeah. And lastly, we're just going to go over just a couple of geek news, really. The kind of just headlines, that just little updates on a couple of other projects that's going out in the pipe. Starting with Warner Brothers announced that the Batman 2 has been delayed by a full year and will now be released October 2nd, 2026. Wow, we're waiting.
That one hurts.
A long time for that Batman movie to come out.
Well, as long as they make it right, then I'm okay.
Right,
with
yeah.
that.
I mean, at this point, like, I guess take as long as you need, but even 2025 was already long, and now another year off of that. So I'm not sure if it was more of we need more time, or maybe they're trying to space out some of the other DC movies that's down the pike.
Probably more that than anything.
Yeah. But a little bit sad that we have to wait a full year. Now more than 2 years, because that's October 2026. So we're like 2.5 years away from even seeing that movie. And that movie came out in 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah. Or 2021. What, 21? When did the Batman come out? If it was 21, that'd be insane.
March 1st, 2022.
Okay. All right. So it'll be 4.5 years really, since the first movie. But yeah, as long as it's good, I'm here for it. But yeah, you just gotta be more patient with it. Sony announced that Venom 3 is officially titled Venom: The Last Dance, and it has a new release date of October 25th, 2024. I think it was previously, I think it got bumped up by 2 weeks. So it was supposed to come out like mid-November, which seemed a little odd to me. Coming out right around October, like Halloween time, makes more sense in my book. Yeah. And The Last Dance has a new title. Interesting. Don't know about that.
So it's gonna be a musical?
Yeah, like the Joker already got you on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the Joker 2 already got you on the musical aspect. So I don't know what this has anything to do with anything, but definitely interesting. We know very little about Venom 3 so far, and now we know it's called The Last Dance. And maybe this is the last movie, which will be okay with that.
That'd be nice. We already got the symbiote over to the MCU. We got what we needed. This can go away now.
Exactly. Now, if they throw in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man in the mix, now we have a different conversation. I just don't know if they're going to do that. Like, we'll see.
We'll see. There's a lot of rumors about so many different Spider-Man movies coming out, and now they're re-releasing them all back out in the theaters.
Yes, I did see that as well. You can see for the next 8 weeks during the summer, you can see one Spider-Man movie a week. Sure, why not? They're celebrating Sony 100 years, so they're putting out all their best movies, and according to Sony, they're all Spider-Man.
They're all Spider-Man. They're like, this is the best money we've ever spent on a character we didn't create.
Yep. Pretty much. Nintendo and Illumination announced that a new Super Mario Bros. Movies is in the works and will be released April 3rd, 2026, with the original team behind the first film returning. It is worth noting that they didn't say it was a sequel to they didn't say that it was a sequel to Super Mario Bros. They just said another Super Mario Bros. Movie within the world is coming out. They didn't specifically say it was a sequel to the first movie.
Just give us that Super Smash Brothers movie. That's what we want.
Yeah, I know, right? That's what we
That's
want.
what everybody wants.
Yeah.
Just make it happen. You want your money? Here, make this movie.
Yes. Now, the wording of it could be, a little bit misleading. Maybe they are indeed actually working on a sequel to the first movie, but they didn't say that. They just said they're doing another one.
Yeah.
So there's that. The read between the lines there. But I'd be curious to see if they don't make a direct sequel, then where would you go from there?
Yeah, it's like, what is this about then?
Yes, exactly. And also, it was very interesting to see that they continued to make another movie with Illumination, whereas they decided to also make a movie with Sony on a live-action Zelda movie with a different studio. So
very strange.
Very strange. But you got if you got it, you got it. The Nintendo's a very strong brand, and they're pushing out there on multiple studios because why not?
Why not?
And lastly, Netflix announced a live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender is renewed for a second and a third season, which is kind of a big deal to give a series a 2-season renewal right out of the gate.
Because I think it's like, all right, well, the first season did okay, so at this point, if we're gonna give you 2, we might as well give you 3 and finish out the story. Because isn't the original one 3 seasons?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's why.
I mean, it makes sense, but also it's not common that you see anyone give out a direct 2-season order. Like we see that sometimes with like The Simpsons gets like a 5-season renewal. What's the other one? The one with Always Sunny in Philadelphia also got like a 5-season renewal. South Park got like multiple seasons of renewals. It's not often that you get that. That means you kind of proven yourself to be a good, solid series. But I think to more your point, if they've already got greenlit for 2, people and the fans are going to want to see the finale of it all. So I guess it kind of makes sense there. But good for Netflix because they didn't have to do that. They could have just been like, one and done, people.
Yeah. Well, I think in the beginning it was probably more of that. But then it's like the reviews are kind of mixed, but mostly positive. That it's like, well, at this point, maybe the show will grow on people the more the time goes on, and that's probably what happened. If season 2 gets way better, then people get hyped for season 3. So if season 2 really comes out strong and ends strong, a lot of people who hyped it up will get their friends to go back and watch 1 and 2 and prep for 3.
Right, and also now this gives the creators the freedom to maybe even film some scenes that there's going to be in season 3. Maybe the production budget could be a little bit smaller since they can film back to back if they so choose to. True. There's a lot of nice security in there when you have another season to bank on as well. So there you go. That's all the entertainment news we have for you guys this week. As always, you can go to our social media channels on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers and our Facebook and Threads page at boxofficebingers. We'll post all the latest and breaking news over there first, and then we'll come back in the show and we'll talk about it. So with that, we're going to be moving over to a fun segment we like to call Whatcha Watchin. So Ernesto, we'll start with you. What have you been watching?
So, to start it off, I introduced my son, Edward, and actually Bella, to the movie The Sandlot. He was like, I've been really wanting to watch like this. He calls them old-timey movies, and I just felt all the gray hairs on my head come out. Like he was looking at this one movie. He's like, look, this movie came out in the 2000s. Look how old it is. It's like, yeah. It's like, we're going to watch a movie from the 90s. So then when I popped on, I was like, I actually thought that I had shown it to him already. And I mean, what a great movie. Like this movie is obviously, this movie is a classic. Even to this day, it still resonates. I think the story really transfers over time. Like you can still enjoy it. My 3-year-old, she was able to follow the story and still enjoy it and pick up what was happening. So they really, like, this is just a really well made, like one of the greatest kids movies made. Hands down.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of solidify a classic like that when you can stand the test of time and have a story that resonates no matter what generation you're watching it in, and then you got yourself a classic.
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful coming of age story, making friends, like learning how to overcome your fears, like all things that that little kids relate to. So hands down, this movie still resonates. Go make your kids watch it. Or just go watch it yourself. It slaps.
Yeah.
Ooh, and Matt, I've been seeing this trailer for this movie, and I was like, I think I'm gonna go see it. So I went to the theaters, and I saw Imaginary. I've been watching this damn trailer for the past 3 months, and I'm like, this movie is either gonna be garbage or it's gonna be really good. And I am here to tell you that it was all right.
I was patiently waiting. Like, which one is it?
No, it actually was. It was decent. It had some good jump scares. It's definitely another one where like it's not like super gory. Like it's kind of meant for that middle of the road, maybe younger horror audience. But they did get me. I will say that like they did get me on the reveal and the turn. Like there was something that there's a reveal that they give you in the movie that you don't pick up on at all, or at least I didn't pick up on it at all. And it for me, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, oh, Imaginary, you got me. I actually did not see that coming. I said, okay. You now have my attention. Like once, so then from that point on, I was a little bit more on board when they were able to do that to me, because it's not very often that a movie can get you like that.
Sure.
And I don't want to bury the lead because it doesn't really take it away, but there is a level. Like if you get that revealed to you in the movie, there is a level of enjoyment that comes with that, where now you're spending time. Second, you're guessing yourself like, did I miss that? Like, how did I not catch that? Now it seems obvious, but beforehand, it really, didn't pop out to me. But the movie was good. The jump scares were good. There wasn't a lot of killing in it. To be fair, there's maybe one or two, which is why I say I think it's meant for like a younger audience. And even then, like the person who's killed is like killed behind a closed door, and like it's more implied than it is directly seen. But some of the scares that they give you are pretty decent, like pretty decent jump scares. Like it was actually enjoyable. Like I actually kind of enjoyed this movie.
I want to say that I don't think you're selling it for me. Like I also saw this trailer for 3 months. And I was like, no. Like
and I wasn't.
This ain't it.
I wasn't. You don't have to rush to go see it. But if it passes by you, some point in your streaming adventure, like it wouldn't be a total waste of your time, I guess is what I should say.
Okay, I'll put it this way: is whatever the turn is, the twist, is it worth the watch? Or if you just told me what it was and be like, oh, okay. Because I feel like that's my whole point at this. Is like, once you tell me the turn, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I'm going to move on. Like, I didn't need to watch it. Because I'm watching this trailer and I was like, I really don't care about this. Does not pique my interest whatsoever. Never had.
I mean, it didn't really for me either. It was the only thing in my time window where I was like, well, I got to go pick up my kids. But I got time. Like, look, there's a couple of movies I could see that I can just squeeze in before I can go get them. And then this happened to be the winner of the draw. The one of the draw. Okay. And then it's just luck of the draw. Sometimes these movies are good and sometimes they're bad.
Yeah.
But this one, to be fair, I expected it to be garbage. Like I really expected trash. And it was better than I expected, I guess is why I bring it up.
All right, so what's your official Letterboxd rating on this?
Ooh, I'm gonna go 3 stars. It was
3.
It was decent. It was decent.
So
maybe 2.5.
Enough.
Maybe I'm gonna go 2.5 because it's like middle. Because it's very middle of the road, and I feel like 3 is like, I don't know.
3 is like solid. Like you enjoyed like more than half the movie. I would say.
Oh, then 2.5. Like, we'll go 2.5 then.
Then 2.5.
There were some. Okay. I mean, it was enjoyable, but there was some cheesiness in there. But I was fine with that. But that doesn't make it less enjoyable. But as far as like my official rating, I'm gonna go 2.5.
2.5. All right, fair enough.
And then, I watched another classic.
No, that's it. Is a classic.
This movie, we watched Click, with Adam Sandler movie. Every time I watch this damn movie, it makes me cry like I've never cried before. Like I cry so hard when I watch this movie, and I have no idea why. You get to the end of the movie, and you get all this build up, and there's so much like comedy, and like the movie's hilarious. Like you get all this comedy, but this movie finds a way to just flip it on you in like a second. Like you go from 1 second to laughing at Adam Sandler. There's a part where he's, if you haven't seen the movie, where he gets fat, he gets skinny, and he has a liposuction, and he's flipping his belly flat back and forth, and it's just, and then like 2 minutes later, you're crying because he's like giving his life to give his final message to his family, and I just think that it's just such a beautiful film. It, like, even now through time, like I showed my kids it, and they all loved it. They loved it. They thought it was great. So just another fantastic Happy Madison film. He's got quite a few like just solid bangers. Like there's this one.
Yeah.
I would say The Wedding Singer, 50 First Dates,
50 First Dates is good.
Big Daddy, Mr. Deeds, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore. I mean, God, there's so many good ones. But then you get movies like Jack and Jill.
Yeah. Later down the line, like Grown Ups wasn't bad.
Oh, I liked
either.
Grown Ups. I liked Grown Ups.
Yeah, Grown Ups was fine. Like it's weird because Adam Sandler, and we're going to be talking about him also a little bit later. Adam Sandler has an interesting way of him in a comedy where like it works. Like your stick, your style, it's a little bit goofy and it can be a little bit ridiculous at times, but there are moments where it's like, this is genuine. He feels like your everyday man.
Yes.
Just going through just random stuff, and and then every now and then his wife is like Salma Hayek and like Kate Beckinsale. I was like, I'm not buying that part of it all, but you know what? I can relate to Adam Sandler in some weird way. Yeah, Jennifer Anderson. Yeah, Drew Barrymore. Come on, no way, not this guy. It's like, too many.
It's like, I'm gonna make movies, but I'm gonna make my wife insanely hot. Like,
no way this makes any sense. I'm not buying it. No wonder why it took you 50 first dates to get her right. I'm just saying.
But it was just good to go back to it after all these years. It was one of those where I was like, man, I wonder if I'm still going to enjoy this after all this time. And without fail, I still loved it. It was a great film.
That's always a good reassurance that you get like a movie that you love, and then you go back and watch it after so many years and like, okay, it's still good. Because then you get some movies where you're like, ooh, that didn't age well.
Yikes.
That didn't age well. Yeah, that did not age well at all. But I mean, Click for me was among my favorites of Adam Sandler. And I'm pretty sure the critics bashed this movie.
Yeah, fuck
like them. They're going to be, I'm going to look it up real quick, but I think they did not find this favorable, and they're wrong.
Oh, they're 100% wrong. Come on, get out of here. Like, this movie's...
Let me see. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Click receives a 34% critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 66% audience. I think that's, even the audience, I think is still too low. That could be bumped up. This is a classic.
This movie's I am very curious to see what other people think about this movie. If you've seen it, I would love to know what you think about this. Whether you, Click is a classic.
Click is a classic. Hashtag Click is a classic.
Exactly.
All right, what else you
got? I finished Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Ooh, nice.
Solid series. Really good. I'm kind of on board now. Like I'm on board for the Star Trek journey. I'm kind of curious as to what that would entail, because I understand that there is a lot of content out there. So at least, like, just should I go to, like, I wonder what would be the next show in the timeline for me to watch next. So, but I guess
in the timeline, probably the classic stuff, because this takes place before all of that.
Yeah. See, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that this is like the beginning, is from what I've been told. But then what is the next? Is there like another new show that I need to watch, or should I just hop right on to the original? I guess I should really ask David. I have a couple of friends who are Trekkies, who I'm sure will be able to tell me exactly where to watch next.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you're looking for something like new, then obviously Star Trek Discovery would be your next venture, because that might feel a little bit separated, but still in the Star Trek feel. But like, I've always had a good fascination of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It looks like I know, again, I've said this before, it feels like classic Star Trek, what the Orville was emulating.
Yeah,
And I feel like this. Yeah, and I know I'm gonna be 100% down for it. Also, it feels very separated from what the other Star Trek shows have been, so I don't feel like I need to do my homework to even enjoy this show.
Agreed.
So
yeah. There is,
and I haven't even seen
it. There are parts of the show where it feels like they're like doing like very specific call outs because they'll like say a character name and then all of a sudden everything just gets real quiet. Nobody's saying anything. I was like, oh, I think we're supposed to be in awe because we're supposed to know what this, whatever the hell it is they're referencing. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So this is something important. They just said something important.
Also, very similar to this, we also saw that Black Mirror is coming out with new episodes, and they announced that we're getting a sequel episode to the USS Callister, famous episode starring Jesse Plemons. That was a fantastic episode of Black Mirror, and it makes complete sense they would do a sequel to that.
100%.
So, I'm here for that.
I love me some Black Mirror, so. And I think that's all I got besides our stuff that we share.
Okay. I think the first thing I have is, so this was a very quick watch. I watched Scott Pilgrim Take Off. It's 8 episodes, 30 minutes each. It was a very quick watch. Basically, if you remember, they brought back the original cast from the movie to voice all of their characters again. So that was like my big interest in it. And it was basically just a serialized version of the story that we knew from Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So I was like, oh, okay. This seems fun. This is like a fun thing I can watch. Is just a retelling of the story. You have the same cast brought back. Edgar Wright was brought on as a producer, and things will be great. And then I watched it.
Okay.
And I was this is actually positive. I was blown away because by the end, so like literally we're getting a shot for shot remake of the first part of the movie. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is like legit, like almost verbatim exactly what the movie was. And so there was a part of me as I was watching the first episode that I was a little bit disappointed because I'm like, I know exactly where this is going. There's not really anything different here. I'm just going to see an animated version of the story and a serialized version rather than a 2-hour movie. And then I don't want to give this away because I think for me, this is what made the show. But at the end of the first episode, something happened. And then the rest of it was completely different.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh. And then it took me by the end of around episode 3 where I was like, oh, wow, I see where we're going now. And it took me like, what was it? I had no idea that this was coming. It definitely completely threw me off guard of what this show was. And so then I went from like a passive viewer to like an engaged viewing. I was like, now I really know what's going on and I'm loving this. And then it starts getting meta and I was like, hell yeah. I mean, I was like, now we got a show. I was like, wow, this takes a huge spin on what the story is. And I think it went down for the better.
Okay.
Like it definitely made this like, who knew that you can retell the same story and have a very similar outcome by the end of it, but do it in a completely different way that I was expecting. This surprised me a lot, and I enjoyed it a lot by the end of it. So much so that I didn't yet, but like I want to go back and rewatch the movie because that's what I thought I was getting with this. So now I got this completely different version of it, and I feel like, well, wait a minute, I got gypped out of what I thought I was going to watch. I wonder if there was a way I can watch the thing I thought I was going to watch. Oh, yeah, there's the movie. That's exactly what I thought it was. And then you can go watch the movie version of it.
Do you see a setup for a second season, or is this a one and done?
I'm perfectly fine with this being a one and done. I think they did kind of set up for a second season, which I'll be fine with. But, like, I'll be okay if this is it because they capped it off very nicely.
Okay.
It is a nice 8 episodes, 30 minutes, 4 hours of content. It was a easy breezy watch, and I enjoyed all of it by the end of it. Oh, it took me by surprise. I was quite happy with it by the end of it. So if you're looking for something, if you're interested in the story at all and want to see a different take on it, I would recommend watching Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
Okay, I think you kind of sold me on it.
Yeah, this is definitely something you can watch with the kids as well, Ernesto.
Oh,
so so that could be some. There you go. Moving on from that, I have a couple of movies that I've seen. I'll start with these two. I watched Thanksgiving, the horror movie that just hit Netflix, as well as Damsel, the new Millie Bobby Brown movie that also hit Netflix. Ernesto, let's play a quick game here. Which one do you think I enjoyed more, Thanksgiving or Damsel?
I think you enjoyed Thanksgiving. I think Damsel was not good. Because this is not a fairy tale.
and you would be right, 100%. I'll start with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving apparently is from Eli Roth, who did, I guess, during the Robert Rodriguez like Slaughterhouse movie or something, a Grindhouse or something. He came with a Grindhouse movie, and he. Do you hear that?
No.
Do you hear that? You hear that banging?
No.
Okay, good. That's my cat.
Okay.
Annoying. Anyway.
Cat's trying to make an appearance. It's been a while since your cat has made an appearance on the pod.
Yeah, she has not been an appearance, but now she's being a nuisance.
I hear it a little bit.
At this
now.
point, she was doing well for so long. I don't know what's going on. The kid threw me off guard. I was like, "What is that banging?" It's like, "Oh, I know what she's doing." Being a pain in the ass. Anyway, Thanksgiving. I think it was from Groundhouse or something that like Robert Rodriguez came out with, and it was like a series of like these short horror movies, and Eli Roth directed a portion of that called Thanksgiving. It was a horror Thanksgiving movie, and then many years later he came out with a feature film on it, and I think it really worked for it. It was basically the movie kicks off on a very intense Black Friday evening where Black Friday was taking place during Thanksgiving, and then, believe it or not, Ernesto, people died during the Thanksgiving night of Black Friday, and then a year later goes by and people want some revenge. So all of a sudden you get this killer that's out there killing people who had a part of what happened in the fiasco of last year's Black Friday events.
So, like, I know what you did last summer, but Thanksgiving Black Friday style?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
But a little bit less about a mystery. I mean, obviously the killer, we don't know who the killer is, so that's the mystery. But, like, no one was, like, trying to hide they did something wrong. It was just that they were part of a pretty horrific event that happened a year ago. And now you have this murderer going out here kind of taking revenge on the events that happened last year. So it was pretty solid for for a horror movie. Pretty good. Like there was one bit where he cuts a guy in half and then he said half off.
Okay.
he was half off because
he cut him in half.
Because he cut him in half.
Because of Black Friday.
Exactly. And I was like, you know what? That's silly, but it's funny.
Like, sure, we'll go.
Sure.
That's fine.
Yeah. If you're looking for like I mean, I wouldn't really call it silly because at some points it took itself seriously, but also like the production value wasn't completely there. But for what it had, it worked. Like I enjoyed it for what it was.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of those horror movies where like just take it for what it is, and you might have a good time watching it. And then there was Damsel, Millie Bobby Brown, which I feel like, you remember when you see the trailer and you're like, man, the trailer kind of gave away a decent amount of the movie.
Yeah.
And then you're waiting for them to get to the punchline of the trailer. That's what I was waiting for 40 minutes with this movie. Like the first 40 minutes of build up to what the trailer already told me that was going to happen. So basically, Millie Bobby Brown's is a princess, I guess. Or just she's part of some sort of royalty in some other land, and she's going to be married off to somebody else that has a more wealthier royal line. And so we knew that. And then after she gets married, she basically is part of this cult that needs to sacrifice a daughter of the royal family to this dragon. And you know that from the trailer. But it took us 40 minutes for them to basically bury the lead and like just toss her into this dungeon area where the dragon can hunt her and kill her as a sacrifice to this family. But when the trailer already explained that, I don't need the movie to take me 40 minutes to get there, because then the other half of the movie was then I felt like where the movie started, because that's where I didn't know we were gonna go. But I will say it was solid. It wasn't great. I'm also still not a fan of Millie Bobby Brown as an actress. I feel like I've tried multiple times, and outside of Stranger Things, I do not like any of the stuff that she's been in. And I don't think she's a good actress. And now maybe she's older, maybe she might be better. And no, still not there. But it was fine. The CG dragon was okay. Like, there were parts where I was like, ooh, that looks a little rough. But like, I don't like to fault movies on bad CGI, because I know that a budget
For most of the time.
is there.
Sometimes
Sometimes
there's some shit that's just like, did you finish rendering that?
yeah, fair. Like, I don't want to solely like just bash on a movie because of bad CGI.
That's fair.
I know that it is what it is on that front. Like, some people have a bigger budget than others.
Okay.
And so I can give a pass on that. But to your point, there are some times where like, ugh, maybe give one more pass on that rendering.
Yeah,
That's all we got to say about
one more
that.
time.
I wouldn't say this movie is necessarily not worth your time, but it's kind of one of those, like, if you have 90 minutes and you want something to stream, it's on Netflix. And that's the point that we were saying earlier about Netflix movies, where it's like, it's a hit or miss if it's good or not. But it's like, it's something that, we got like a big name that people like, so we're just going to put them in a random movie with a random story, and it's going to be good. And like that, you can't just sell a movie on that. You got to have some good context in there.
True.
Which this movie had a little bit of. There was a few elements where I'm like, oh, okay, I like the direction that they went. But overall, it was like,
not good.
and that's 90 minutes. All right, moving on. Next movie. And now moving on to my next two films, Role Play, which starring Kaylee Kuko and David Iolio. David Iolio.
Oeloyo.
Yeah, I like that one. It's
I don't. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's not right either. But he was also in the After the Short that was nominated for the Oscars just recently. It's another one of those movies where it was just fine. Kaylee Kuko plays a secret agent that she's not being aware of her family, and then like, that's kind of the shtick of the movie. Her husband eventually finds out over the whole point of the title, where like they were having a little bit of a rough spot in their marriage, so they decided to quote unquote role play because she travels for work a lot, but when she travels she's an assassin. So there's that. So then, like, they're distant, so they decided to role play the scenario, and then they get caught up in this little bit situation. Then she gets made because then her husband finds out that she's like an assassin, and then the movie kind of takes place from there. The shtick got me interested a little bit. There was also a scene from Bill Nye, who was like really good, not the science guy, but the actor.
Okay.
And he was like that scene was probably the best part of the movie that he was in. And then toward the second half, I feel like we kind of lost the appeal of it very quickly, and the ending was just awful. It was one of those movies that did not end very well. But like, it was an intriguing premise for the most part. Nothing new or original, but a movie that I saw.
Okay.
And then there was also Trolls Band Together. It just hit Peacock, and it's kind of one of those where like I've seen the other ones, and it's like there's like this slight interest there that like, sure, I'll watch it just to put something in the background. I have no reason or any attachment to this franchise, but like, why not? And it was pretty much as the other movies are.
Yeah.
Are like, it's obviously meant for kids.
Yes.
But I think these are solid additions to like DreamWorks. I don't think they've made a bad one of these movies, of these Trolls movies. They kind of all feel the same. Yeah. And if you like Trolls 1 and 2, then you get a Trolls 3.
And the music's good.
Like,
music's good, you know?
Yeah, music's good. There's a lot of like pop, like boy band jokes in here. And they did end up getting NSYNC to come back and perform a song for this movie, obviously because Justin Timberlake. A lot of like, because the main story is Branches has these brothers that he was part of a boy band back in the day, and very popular and whatnot, very similar to Justin Timberlake. Definitely stealing a lot from Justin Timberlake's life, and they putting it into this Trolls. Then one of his brothers got kidnapped by these people, and so then they have to go on this journey to go save him and get the band back together and all this stuff. So like, it was fine. A solid 90 minutes of just pure entertainment. A couple of life lessons along the way. The only thing I have a problem with DreamWorks is that I feel like by the third movie, there's always a long lost sibling that needs to be introduced. They did the same thing with Despicable Me 3, where he had like a twin brother, and I was like, we can get away from that as our third movie. We don't need to continue to do that our main characters have long lost brothers. I don't know why we keep going back to that, but we can stop doing that. Just saying. But I mean, again, if you like the first two, then this is pretty much the same. I actually didn't mind the second one, kind of exploring all the different genres of music.
Yeah,
I preferred that much more than like these Bergens are gonna eat the trolls aspect of the first movie, and then the second was more like, we're gonna go on this tour to save music. I'm like, okay, I can get behind that a little bit better. And obviously by the third one, they kind of stuck with we're gonna keep this musical theme going.
Use the music to save the world.
Exactly. Yeah, which is again another fine addition. Nothing to rave about, but solid. I think that's it as far as the stuff that we've seen separately.
And now we have two things that we've both seen together. The first being Ricky Stanicky. This is Zac Efron and John Cena's new project. Matt, what were your thoughts?
I didn't think it was that bad. I honestly thought it was going to be worse than what it was.
Same. I agree.
And so I think maybe to your point as well, the big appeal for this is like Zac Efron in a comedy. And he's put out some solid ones in the past and not so great ones as well. There was the good ones I refer to as Neighbors that he did pretty well in. The ones that were questionable were Bad Grandpa or Dirty Grandpa with Robert De Niro. Yep. And then he also did Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates.
That's right.
With the guy from Pitch Perfect. I forgot his name.
Oh, Adam Devine.
Adam Devine, yes. And then that also starred Anna Kendrick and Audrey Plaza. Those were like your really goofy comedies that he's been down. So this is no different from what Zac Efron has done in the past. And then you have John Cena, who's really going out there with this role.
Well, I mean, he did do Blockers. He was in the movie
fair.
Blockers,
He did
which
do
is,
Blockers.
I mean, this is very similar. This was very similar to that. This was, I don't know, it was fine. Just the premise was weird. Like, okay, you guys have this best friend that nobody knows is fake, and you've built this lie throughout your entire life, and not one person was able to catch on.
Yeah.
And then you turn
except for that mom.
Yeah, except for that one mom. But she was new. Yeah, she was the only one out of anybody who suspected anything. And then the one mom would just kind of like went along with it. Like, oh yeah. And then you use that as a story for him to become a better person.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I guess.
Yeah, I mean everyone's happy at the end of the day, right?
I get. Well, it was a little weird at the end when his girlfriend, like, she finds out, she writes the whole expose, and like she's a reporter.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing. She's a reporter, and she's heard about this friend for years, and not once got suspicious about it.
The fact that I think the biggest thing for me is that you never met this person in real life, but yet this was the reason why you always left to go hang out with this mysterious friend you never met, and it was more or less an scapegoat for when you wanted to do anything you wanted to do to not be either in a situation or just be away from your significant others throughout this. And then even they were going through the Bible, and because they were writing down all the times they've used Ricky Stanicky as an scapegoat. And then one of them, to her point, was like, you did this to go to watch a baseball game. Like, you could have told me to go to a baseball game. So
she was like, what if I wanted to do, I wanted to do this thing.
Yeah, like with you.
Yeah.
Like I would have joined you in these little adventures that you had to lie yourself through. So like there was a through line in there. I just don't think it was executed great.
It's like, you've been lying to me about this person and going on random mandates with your friends for as long as I can remember you. But you know what? Let's get married. I still love you more than this huge lie you've been telling me all these years.
I also think there was a weird, like, you have been lying to me all these years, and there's also this weird through line of where, like, he didn't want to have kids, and clearly she wanted to have kids. But we never really went back to that after a certain point.
Also, he had a rough, and then they made slight implications to his rough family life at home, and like this was possibly the reason why he created Ricky Stanicky and kept him for so long. I don't know. It was strange. And then like William H. Macy, he just like hires him off the spot, like to work at this. I mean, there were some funny parts where he's like, "Oh, I loved your friend Ricky so much, I hired him." And Zac Efron goes, "The fuck you just say to me?" To me, I mean, there were some really funny parts. It was a little off-putting watching John Cena sing about like masturbating and coming all over people using popular songs. I thought that was a little strange.
Very strange.
Like, I'm all for R-rated, unrated comedy, but it's just like, I guess maybe that was the point. It's just there's just something so off-putting about this large, muscular man talking about these things in as you see right here in the poster, in like a Britney Spears outfit, or like he had like the guys from Whip It, the music video, he had like their outfit on. Like, he really went for it. There was one bit about him, like about two dogs having sex. I don't know.
That was a weird bit.
That was like, really strange.
Sometimes a comedy can just go a little bit too far for no reason, and I feel like there were parts in this movie where it kind of did that in a way. But overall, this was this fine comedy. It was fine. It's funny because I think we've talked about this in the past, that comedies don't really land in theaters anymore. And then you get comedies like this that would probably have lended itself to like the theater route.
I agree.
Like I could have 100% seen this movie in the theaters, but instead went to Amazon Prime instead, which, it might have probably done better that way than going into the theaters. But
I don't know. I think it probably would have did well in the theaters. Like, because what other, especially now during spring break, where a lot of college students or just students in general are out, like, this is a good like bro comedy for you and your guys to go see.
So I just pulled up the Rotten Tomatoes score. What do you think the critics gave this?
I'm sure the critics, if I had to guess, I'm gonna say either a 3 or a 4.
Well, out of 100.
Oh, out of 100? I'm gonna go 55%.
55?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you think the audience was higher or lower than that?
I think the audience is probably a little bit higher. Maybe like 60 or 70.
So the critics gave it a 45%.
Okay.
With the audience score giving it a 73%.
Oh, see, I was right. I was close.
Yeah. But I think I'm kind of in the middle between the two. I don't think it deserves a 43. But I don't think it also deserves a 73.
It's somewhere in that 50 to 60 range. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm kind of giving it, around 55 for me. If I had to give it, like, going off of Rotten Tomatoes numbers, like a 55% there. So
I guess like a 2.5. I guess like a letterbox 2.5.
2.5. Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's fine. This is fine. Like, was I entertained? Yes. Did I laugh at a few parts? Yes. Is that the whole point of a comedy? Yeah.
Fair.
So, like, it did its job. Like, it entertained me for 90 minutes. And I wouldn't say that it was necessarily predictable, but it was weird.
And there was like some sort of through line that they were trying to get across. So it wasn't just So it wasn't completely mindless. So
correct. Yeah, I wouldn't say this was mindless. That's a good point to say. And also Zac Efron, this was one of his weaker performances. And then John Cena's one of his strangest performances.
Yeah. Like, whereas, like, the same kind of comedy, like, in Blockers, I thought he was hilarious in that movie. Yes. So he does, I think he does lend himself to R-rated comedies well, given the right role. Maybe not dressing up like Britney Spears or,
Right. But I think there were, like, a lot of good moments in there where he, like, and I think they did a really good job with this angle of the movie where, like, you have this guy literally, rock hard Rod?
Yes.
For, like kind of like literally at rock bottom, and then all of a sudden you see him take this role very seriously, and also, like, after his role was over, really didn't want to lose that because he saw a person that he could be given the right context, and he, like, nailed the role, obviously.
Yeah, there was that aspect that I was like, oh, like, that's what made it a little bit, like, worth mentioning, because it's not completely mindless. Like, there is some, like, it's funny, and there is something to take away from that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So like I agree with you. 2.5 stars. You don't expect much.
No.
But it's just a solid goofy comedy.
I like how even solid, you were like almost questioning yourself.
Yeah, I was like, is it solid?
Is it solid? Is it?
It's solid goofy. It's definitely a goofy comedy.
But is it solid?
Be in the right mindset for. And I feel like that's what a lot of these movies are. Like, know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking about something else, it'll completely change your experience.
Agreed.
Like this next movie we're going to talk about.
Ooh. So I'm going to start off.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say that I want to apologize to my parents. Because they came over my house this weekend. And I was like, oh, we have to watch this movie. I said, Adam Sandler. And I was like, you know what? I really liked him in Uncut Gems. I love Paul Dano. I think that this has a possibility to be great. Adam Sandler has shown that he can do serious roles. I said, let's get it. I said, I have a good feeling about this. And boy, was I wrong. This movie was absolutely terrible. And I really hate to say that. Like, I wanted to like this movie because I liked what they were exploring. I think the subject matter that they were exploring is really interesting. You know, somebody who's doing something for the good of humanity, but is plagued by this loneliness and having these marital issues back home. And like, what is that? Like, what does that headspace even look like? You know, for somebody who's like so far away, they're nowhere near even to being close to the person who they want to be with and dealing with that loneliness. I mean, I liked Paul Dano. He was a little bit too soft spoken for me, but I liked his character. I just it was missing something. Like it was just too serious. It was just too serious and just too somber. Like there was no levity. Like the one laughing moment I got from this is when he's on the live call with the girl and she goes, "So is it true that you're really lonely?" Or I don't remember some shit. She's like doesn't it suck that you're alone? Like
yeah. And this is Spaceman, by the way. I'm not sure who said the title of this movie. This is Spaceman, starring Adam Sandler and Carey Mulligan on Netflix right now. Yes. So the beginning of this movie had my interest. I think the movie did a good job setting itself up for what this movie is. You have Adam Sandler in space, and like he's trying to get samples of what's in space. I'm not sure exactly what he was out there for.
He's trying to collect that little space dust that's right outside of Saturn. That's like considered like there for them like the edge of the universe, and it's like the beginning and the end. It's like with the remnants of the Big Bang, I guess.
And it's only gonna take him a year to do that. I mean, that seems a little odd.
You're talking about in a world where Adam Sandler is talking to a giant space spider,
which was also another weird angle of this movie. I'm assuming that spider was not real.
No, the spider was real. It's from a different universe. It's from another part of the universe, like maybe from the other side of that thing, or I don't know.
Yeah, I never bought that spider was real. That's the way I approached the movie. That spider was not real. It was just a subconscious thing that was in his head to kind of rationalize his way of being a better person through his loneliness up in space.
Okay, I could
that's
see
the way
that.
I took it.
I could see that.
Yeah, because there was never any interaction with anybody else. Sure, you could take it as face value that the spider was real from a different dimension. That's perfectly fine. I chose to see it as this was just a figment of his imagination.
You know, you bring up a good point, because there are parts in the movie where like they make it a point to tell you that they can't see him on camera. Where they're like, we can't. That camera's busted, so we can't see you right now. And it's usually, and it always was when Paul Dano was in the room with him. But then they don't ever make a reference to it ever again. So I guess that's why I didn't really put any like really like notice on that.
Yeah. Also, I really did not like any scenes with Carey Mulligan in it, and I like her as an actress. We've seen her in multiple Maestro. We saw her in Promising Young Woman. She's a great actress. We see that in other movies. This one, I don't think they gave her anything to do. It was just like, I'm going to leave my husband for reasons. And like throughout the movie, we see those reasons. But like, man, we kind of just really ran slow with this. And like, I really didn't care about this story whatsoever. And then you had tell me to believe that after you had interactions with a spider that can help you go through your demons inside and your loneliness, and also maybe just not being an asshole to your wife or just be less selfish or whatever the case is. And they both spiritually had the same epiphany that they belonged together by the end, when she was pretty convinced that she was going to leave him because he didn't really care about anything about her and was just selfish. Like, I don't know. Like, also, they didn't even talk to each other throughout the whole movie.
Yeah. But yet they were both came to this realization. I don't know.
I didn't buy into that at all. I think the pacing of this movie was just really, really awful.
This was a really rough watch. For those though you guys obviously don't know because we picked Ride On to be our review, but this was originally going to be our review for this week. But then after watching the movie, we're like, maybe just for what you're watching, we'll have to pick something else.
Yeah. Yeah, it was between Spaceman and Ride On, and we were contemplating and doing both, and we're kind of doing both anyway. But ultimately, I mean, the way that I felt about this movie is like, it's weird because even the way that I felt about like going back to like a really bad movie, which was Madam Web, and like there were multiple reasons why I despised that movie for what it was, and like right,
the internet
and, like,
knows,
even
Matt.
the internet knows exactly. that's the truth. And really because it never respected even the basics of filmmaking, or even trying to make it look like a movie was put together correctly, which is one of the reasons why I was furious about this movie. But like, there's another aspect of not liking a movie like this movie, which I really did not like, and had nothing to do with the filmmaking process whatsoever. It was more along the lines of like, your pacing was off. You didn't really give your characters much to do. A lot of it was very like internalized. I don't know. It's maybe that's not even the right word to use, but there was a lot about this movie that just didn't work for me. Like, I'm not sure at the end of the day what type of story were you trying to tell that I haven't seen other movies before. Like, you're just exploring through loneliness and space. Like, I saw that with Ad Astra and with Brad Pitt, and that was a way better version of that than this was.
I mean, yeah. So it's like you're giving us a story, but to what end? Like, all right, he's lonely, but that's it. Like, that's all we get. He's lonely. He fucked up with his wife. He became focused on work, and now he's too far away to make a difference. And he's at the edge of the universe did he die then? Or did he go back? Or no, he came back to Earth.
It looks like he came back to Earth. It looks like he got saved from another space station, because he was with other people toward the end of that movie when he was finally had a chance to talk to his wife after they both had the realization that they should be together. Because I think he drifted off from his space station and then got picked up by another one. Very unclear, by the way. But yeah, also the whole point of why he was out there kind of just got blown to the wayside.
Yeah, he didn't collect anything. Because he went out there to watch Hanus die, the space spider. The spider. And then he turned into like a bunch of million spiders because he was being rebirthed in the beginning, I guess.
I don't know.
It was weird. I wanted to like it more because I am rooting for, especially that other basketball movie he did last year? Hustle, either last year or the year before last. Fantastic film. But you know what?
Yeah.
It's all right. Like, you know, he's willing to do any role. And I think if the writing had been stronger, then this movie would have been better. Like, because it does felt like he was. I mean, I could really feel the strong performances from Adam Sandler and Paul Dano, but like I felt like they were just using what they were given. Like this, I felt like they needed this movie. This could have been a totally we could be having a totally different conversation if the writing had just been a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I think I feel like this is all based on the director, for sure. Like, I think he didn't write it. Well, it's based off of a book that, let's see, who's the writer? He also wrote filmography. he wrote movies I've never heard of before. All right, so that doesn't help. But Colby Day was the writer of this movie, also based off of a book called Spaceman of Bohemia. So this is based off of a book. And the director was responsible for a lot of television, but primarily I think all episodes of Chernobyl, which was also very dense of a show.
Yeah.
So
but Chernobyl
that doesn't
was
surprise me. So this also doesn't surprise me that like this movie is as dense, but you can have dense material like Chernobyl and be 100% gripping and be like really interesting to watch. Whereas this one, I feel like there was not much interesting about this movie. I think it's Kunal Nayar. He played Peter throughout the movie. He's from The Big Bang Theory. I was surprised to see him in something. I haven't seen him in a while, and I thought he played that role pretty well of being like Adam Sandler's connection to space. I liked his performance very much. Nothing was really bad about Adam Sandler's performance. I think this all really relies on the director. It was his vision, and his tone just really didn't connect with the rest of the movie for me of what they were trying to say. And at the end of the day, it really wasn't much. And then you have this big old spider in the mix. It just really didn't make any sense. So like, yeah, not for me. I honestly, I'm going to give this like my Letterboxd rating 1.5.
I was gonna say 1. I was like, I'm either gonna go half. I'm gonna go with 1. I'm gonna go with 1 star. But if you go with 1.5, I'll meet you and go 1.5.
Yeah, I feel like that's because there are some things that were you can kind of help there, but ultimately this was just one of those boring watches that like you have to go along this journey with us to get there. It's like no, I don't.
Yeah,
it
was a rough watch.
It doesn't connect. Doesn't connect at all. Whatever you're trying to do doesn't connect. But Adam Sandler, you're still all right.
You're all right.
You're still okay.
You're all right.
We're not going to put this against you. Same for you, Baldano.
Yeah.
But you had some good talent behind it, just not a good movie. So with that, we're going to be diving into I guess with that's all we've been watching. And moving on, we're going to be diving into our spoiler review of our foreign film of the month, which is Ride On, a movie starring Jackie Chan. Came out last year. More or less just recently came onto Prime, a Chinese film. Ernesto, your thoughts on the movie?
It was fine. Like, I don't know. It was good. It was it kind of reminded me of cheesy, like old school action movies, which I think was the point. Like, not in a bad way. I wish it was maybe like 30 minutes shorter.
Yes.
It was definitely made. This is definitely made for a younger audience. I don't know. We were talking about CGI earlier. Like some of the CGI in this film is like there were some parts I was like, wow, that looks like an actual cartoon horse that they used. Like there was just some scenes that were just very cartoonish. Probably the strongest part of the film for me is when he's sitting down with his daughter towards the end, and and she's rewatching all his old footage of him being hurt, and it really kind of solidifies like this movie as a love letter to stunt work, and like what it means to actually be a stuntman. And I think it does achieve that, just in a very expanded way. Maybe could have been a little bit shorter. But I mean, overall, it was fun. Like I could have watched this movie with my kids.
Yeah. I feel like we were getting two different movies here, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I get that.
I feel like tonally, we were kind of bouncing in between like this cheesy comedy, but also with a message. And I feel like that because we kind of led with the cheesiness in the beginning, I felt a lot of it felt forced in the way of like, you're supposed to laugh at these moments. You're supposed to feel sad at these moments. You're supposed to cry at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, the lingering, it's like, I don't ever want to see, I thought I told you don't talk to me. And it just shows him like very sad. It's like, oh, okay, get it.
Yeah, it feels like a movie that other movies would make to show how cheesy the movie that they're watching it. I feel like a movie within a movie. Like it didn't feel real to me, in some parts. And it would just kind of lend itself to the cheesiness of what this was, especially when we were getting that weird interaction when Jackie Chan was first meeting his daughter's boyfriend, and he was getting nervous about meeting the dad, and they had this awkward interaction and like holding hands. And I feel like some of that stuff could have been a cultural thing for sure. Whereas like it could translate as funny or comedy in different countries and not really here. But like that, it just kind of rode that line weirdly, to where I really wish they would focus more on the paying respects to stunt workers than it is trying to be a kind of a goofy comedy, which I feel like it never really landed well for me as a comedy.
Was it too cheesy for you?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit too cheesy for me. There were parts, especially in the beginning, where like even the music itself just felt wacky. In certain parts, I feel like it didn't really give itself moments to be funny or be a drama. Like, again, I just felt like the movie was telling me that I should feel this now instead of letting it happen organically. Where I feel like the only times it actually did that is when you weren't trying to overlay the music to tell me how I should be feeling.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, the funniest parts of the movie, the funniest part that made me laugh was that first it was a setup where he was like, my lawyer, who's my boyfriend, his name is Mickey, and he's like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
And then like that was like, to me, that didn't make me laugh, but it was like, okay, like a throwaway joke. But then what really got me was when he met his parents, and he was like, my name is Donald and Daisy, and he goes, is his parents really named Donald and Daisy?
Is this a
like,
joke?
What's going on? A joke. I had a good time with that scene.
See, you just reminded me in that scene too, where he's talking about like who he is as a person. It's like, would somebody really sit there and just like demean themselves? Like, listen, I know you guys are high class and I'm a piece of shit, but you know, I'm her dad, and I was a piece of shit to her before, but I'm gonna try to be better now. Even though I don't know you, but I'm gonna drop all my personal information and shit about myself during this one interaction.
And then you also then it kind of negates it, where it's like they had that awkward interactions after the dinner, where I feel like that didn't land too, because all of a sudden there's a switch was like, oh, I hate you now.
Yeah, it's like,
and then they go their separate ways. Yeah, it's like you don't take yourself seriously. And then also there were just like some weird lines that Jackie Chan said to his daughter was like, well, it's like, that's none of your business. I was like, where did that come from?
Hey, why'd you gotta be such an asshole? Like,
yeah, like sometimes I think, oh, I want to make sure, I want to be caring and loving, I want to be a better father, and then literally the next scene is like, well, don't fucking ask about it. They're like, why are you asking questions? Like, whoa, what happened
like,
there?
Because she tells him, well, why aren't you nicer to red hair? It's like, why don't you mind your own fucking business? Is basically what he said.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you shut your mouth? It's like, whoa. It's like, whoa, Jackie Chan. Whoa.
Yeah, like, where did that come from? It just felt kind of odd. Yeah, and so then you had like these moments where the whole premise of this movie was, I kind of want to go back and read the log line here, or the synopsis, because that's what really got me into it. And I feel like this is not the movie that we necessarily got. It says, a washed up stuntman and his stunt horse became overnight social media sensation when their real life fight with debt collectors goes viral. At no point did I ever saw that scene happen.
I saw that too, and I was like, did I miss something? Was there a scene where they showed a post going viral? I don't think that ever happened. I don't know if that happened.
I mean, it was very brief. I do remember it happening, but like for that to be like your like synopsis of the movie, and we just kind of brushed over it. Talking about, like, again, the opposite of what Damsel was. Opposite, like, it took you 40 minutes to get there. This movie didn't even talk about it.
We're there.
We're there. We're already there. Which I do find interesting. They spent a lot of time, like, his relationship with the horse. And I think where this movie does shine is when it's trying to put a spotlight on the dangers of stunt work, and maybe the passion that you have for being a stunt worker. of like, because there was a point in the movie where he was like pretty adamant about doing those stunts. Like, this is what you do. Like, there is no you do it, and this is better. We're not relying on CGI to do it. This is how it's done now. We have to do it this way. And he's being pretty stubborn about this. And it was always, as a stunt worker, you die for your craft. That's how you do this. It was like an honorable thing to do as a stunt worker. That if you get hurt doing what you love, because that's part of the job. And I did like the aspect of toward the end where he's like, no, we have CG now. We don't have to do that. Like, for the safety of everybody. He's like, no, this is how it's done, because you're lessening the honorable thing to do as a stunt worker.
It's like, what? No. The honorable thing is to keep you alive. Like, that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Keep you and the horse safe.
I think it was also crazy that, like, when Jackie Chan did get hurt, it was just from him falling off, not all the other crazy stunts that we were seeing throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's like, he got hurt from that? Not from, I don't know, the explosion 2 scenes ago, or that big long jump that they made a dramatic scene about earlier.
Oh yeah,
in the
like
movie?
the Ferris wheel scene that apparently is the injury that set his whole life back. Like, we should have seen all of that. Like, we should, like, that scene, seeing him getting hurt like that probably would have been a good scene to have seen, not as like a flashback of like a thing that happened. And also each of those was like, I don't know, it's like you jump to, like, you got the wide shot and then you jump to him up close. It's like, well, he's clearly not there anymore. Like, like,
I feel like some of those flashback scenes were also misplaced. Like, it was just very random when they did happen. There was no lead into it. It was just like, the one scene was over, we cut to the next scene, and it just said 8 years earlier. It's like, okay.
Okay.
All right. Sure.
All right. So we're here now.
Yeah, that happened. Do you think some of those scenes that they were showing, like all the stuff that he's been doing in the past, do you think some of those were real?
Yeah, like that scene where he's sitting down with his daughter. Like, some of those I recognize from like Rumble in the Bronx and like all like past movies that I've seen him in, and I've seen like some of those specific clips. I also liked at the very end of the movie, it's like at some of his previous movies where you get all like the bloopers and stuff.
Yeah, the
like,
outtakes.
To me, that's the fun of Jackie Chan action movies. So whereas like what we missed in some of the movie and some of this, like, we got it in the end. Like, Rush Hour. Like at the end of Rush Hour, at the end you see all his mistakes and stuff like I love that.
I do feel like that, as far as like Jackie Chan's fight scenes, it's still as entertaining as it ever was.
Absolutely. No matter how you felt about the movie, those action sequences were incredible. Were so good, so good.
As goofy as they were, because none of them were ever taken seriously. It was always him evading from the tax collectors.
Yeah.
That was it. He wasn't even doing those stunts in the movie. It was always for the debt collectors. But those were like, he was at one point like, what are we fighting for? He's like, I don't know. It's like, all right, we'll
just keep going.
Yeah. And then the horse was an interesting element throughout this movie as well. But yeah, those fight scenes were still very entertaining. Like, obviously some of the best parts of the movie. And then really the third act was really about him trying to keep the horse, then losing the horse, then getting back the horse. Again, a lot of that just felt forced to me, and I felt it was very predictable that he was going to get the horse back.
Agreed.
Yeah, there was no doubt about that wasn't going to happen. I feel like a lot of the emotional stuff for me didn't really land as much as maybe the film wanted it to. I also was very confused of the daughter's age. She looks like they're telling me that you're in college, but then they're showing flashbacks when you were a child, and I think it was the same actress playing a younger version of her, and I was like, I don't know what age you're supposed to be.
What's happening?
I feel like that you look like you're like a teenager, but the movie's telling me that you're like in your 20s, at the very least. It's like, I don't know. I was very confused the entire time. Because then she's been practicing some sort of pre-law or something. I don't know exactly what her major was or where she's going with. We just know that her boyfriend was a lawyer, and I guess a good one when not, because we didn't really focus on the court case, but we did get a lot of legal jargon trying to get ownership of the horse. Also, I was very confused about that whole storyline to begin with. I feel like we never really, it was always something in the background that was happening, never really the main focus. like every couple of scenes they just kept going back to like, oh yeah, we have this legal trouble with this horse and they're gonna take it away, but let's just go back to me trying to figure out how to love my daughter and
Be a stuntman past his prime.
and be a stuntman. And yeah, like I don't know, did you feel like there was a disconnect there with all the legal stuff that was happening in this movie?
Yeah, completely. I mean, the movie was completely disconnected. It felt like 3 different movies, 3 little mini movies. You get him trying to be a better stunt performer and him like learning his relationship with his horse. You have the movie of him and his daughter trying to rebuild their relationship, and then you get and then the last one with they're trying to the debt collectors and the horse. Like,
And the horse.
none of them felt really connected in any way. Like maybe he's doing the movies to get the money back, but then he also just was falling in love with what he was doing. I don't know.
Yeah, but we never really got a resolution on that either, because I felt like a third party swooped in to take the horse,
and then they gave it back. Oh, we saw how much you love the horse, so we just gave it back.
So then, who were the debt collectors were working for?
Great question.
Because I was like, was it the guy who ended up getting the horse through court? Like, yeah, a lot of it. You're absolutely right. There are 3 different movies in there. One of them didn't make any sense. One of them was weird, and the other one I would prefer that would have been the whole movie, which was him. Basically, what the synopsis told me: a washed-up stuntman and his stunt horse became overnight social media sensation when their real-life fight of debt collectors goes viral. And then I wanted to see him maybe get back into the love of going into the movies. I feel like that was also a secondary thing. Like, the movie couldn't focus on one storyline that they were going for, so we're going to do all 3. But the one that I respect was what the through line was like the love of being a stunt worker, a stuntman, and that is what Jackie Chan is. Like, he is a stuntman, and just also a leading man, and he does all his own stunts, and he's an action superstar, and it works. And so, like, even watching this movie, like, I feel like this is a good point for him in his career to do a movie like this, where like you're a little bit older, but you have this long-standing career of being one of the greatest stuntmen ever in film history. And then now you're kind of down your luck because of a reason, and then you're kind of going back into the fold after a stunt that happened that went wrong a couple of years ago. And I feel like that angle, that story, that kind of was there, was where I liked about it. But then you have the fluff of the legal drama with the horse, and reconnecting with your daughter that sometimes worked and sometimes it didn't. And then I think by the end they try to make us feel emotional about him losing the horse and getting it back, and I never felt that way at all. Like, I feel like none of that really landed on an emotional level. But
yeah.
Anyway, your final thoughts.
The movie was okay. Like, it just was all right. It was just very disjointed. The only really aspect I loved is I just wish they would have focused more on like what it is to be a stuntman, the life of a stuntman. Like, we got a little bit of that, but I felt like it needed to be more in the forefront of like what it actually means. Especially like, we're in this environment now where it seems like the film industry wants to really focus on the stuntmen of their industry of the industry and what they bring to the table. And I think it's important that we tell these stories effectively so that they can get the love and respect that they deserve.
And I do feel like that at the end, obviously the title card end of the movie was like, this movie goes out to all the stuntmen and workers out there. And obviously they wanted to pay homage to that. And I feel like that movie is there somewhere, but it got lost along the way. I definitely lost along the way. And I do agree with you. This movie was 2 hours. You could have told a very tight story in 90 minutes. And I'd probably have a better impact with that. Because there was a point where he got injured. And I was like, we still have another hour to go. What else can you put in this hour that I feel like you haven't already given me already?
I said the same thing. I said, damn, there's an hour left? It feels like the movie's should be almost over.
Almost over. Yeah, I felt the same way. And then that went into... like the last act was him losing his horse and getting it back, which I was like, yeah, okay, there's that aspect of it. like a bond between a man and a horse, a bond between a man and his daughter, a bond between a man and his work. And that's the movie you
That's
got.
what you got.
It was a little bit, I wouldn't say disappointed, but I guess my expectations were I was going in to see a different movie, and the movie that we wanted was kind of there, but again, got lost along the way. So what would you rate this?
2.5.
Agreed. 2.5. Yeah. I feel like if we stuck with the main story, honestly, either one of them, either of the three that we described, I think if we took away one and maybe focused on two, we might have had a stronger story
Agreed.
there.
And then you could have shaved off another 30 minutes of this movie. Would have been solid.
Absolutely. And then have the fun action stuff, and it's like, oh, this is Jackie Chan, a little bit older, but it makes sense in the role. That it would have worked fine. On paper, sounds like a good idea. In practice, now we see him, and it was okay.
It was fine.
I am excited to see him return to Karate Kid, and Rush Hour 4 in the coming years.
Same, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And there you go. That's all the show we have. Or I mean, I keep going ahead of myself. And there you go. That's our spoiler review of our foreign film of the month, which is Right On. And that is also all the show we have for you guys this week. Ernesto, tell our listeners we're looking forward to next week.
Oh, next week I'm really excited. Nick DTV is coming back, and he is going to be reviewing the next iteration of the Ghostbusters movie. He was on for the recent one that just came out a couple years ago. He was on for Super Mario. He's been on for Sonic. He's our go-to guy for this kind of content. So he is a huge Ghostbusters fan. You can see him here. He's dressed in his Ghostbusters outfit, and plus I've seen pictures of his new proton pack that he's been working on. When it comes to Ghostbusters, I really trust his take. So I'm really excited to have him on again.
Yeah. I mean, we've had, like you said, he was on for Ghostbusters Afterlife, and we had a really long conversation about his love for Ghostbusters, and he is the guy. I mean, when you're building your own proton pack, that's dedication to a film for sure. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this movie. What do you think about this movie, though?
Oh, I'm excited for it. I think this is going to be the movie that's really going to tell if this franchise is going to make it or not.
Ooh, I like that. I like that analysis.
Because Afterlife was like an homage to the originals. Like, it gave us a very simplistic story, but a lot of it was like, let's pay homage, but do it in a way while telling this new original story. Whereas like this is going to be the first movie that's like the first really expansion of this universe. I mean, we see so many different tools. We see them. They got the new outfits. They've got the new guns.
Yeah.
So we've got the whole new team back together, and some of the old ones coming back to help. As with Paul Rudd, I mean, as you can see in the poster, right there in the forefront. So.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see now, because like I feel like the OG Ghostbusters came in as more of a cameo role, much smaller in Ghostbusters Afterlife. And they wanted a lot of the story to have the new people kind of grow into their roles. This sequel definitely feels more of like our OG Ghostbusters are in the forefront of the drama, along with our Ghostbusters. Also, we're going back to New York, where the firehouse is. So I think you made a really good point that this movie will determine if this franchise has continuous, can kind of stand as a modern day. Like it wasn't just it wasn't a success back in the 80s. This one will kind of tell if we can see more of these movies in the future, or do we just stop right
And I'm
here?
really hopeful that this does, because I love the original series, but also for Afterlife, they still respected the original content by continuing it as opposed to just trying to remake it.
Right. So I'm looking forward to this at all. Again, I'm always, as I said before, I'm not the biggest Ghostbusters fan, but I loved Afterlife, and because of what they did. So hopefully they can recapture what they did in Afterlife.
Agreed.
And bring it into Frozen Empire. We do know that Jason Reitman is not coming back to direct the film, who directed Afterlife, the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the first two Ghostbusters. But the screenwriter of Afterlife is coming back to direct Frozen Empire. So, and I think Jason Reitman is having screenwriting credit for this movie as well. So he's still involved, just not as a director.
Yeah.
But as always, we will see. This is one of the big movies that come out in the spring, along with Dune 2, and then shortly after we have Godzilla x Kong. So a very busy spring season, and another blockbuster to see if it has. We also talk about the box office as we usually do. I am also curious to see how it fares well with audiences, to see how many people actually come out and see this movie opening weekend.
Same.
So a lot to discuss here. And if you want more from us, you can follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Instagram and Threads page at Box Office_Bingers. On our Instagram page, you can see all of the Movie Showdown Mondays and what's new to stream every Friday, as well as our Facebook and TikTok page. You can see all the latest and breaking news. We'll post it over there first, and we'll come back in the show and we'll talk about it. And if you want to see our lovely faces, that's going to be on our YouTube page as well as our Spotify page, which is something new that we've been trying, something new that they've offering, and we've just been implementing that. Another way that you can just reach us and see us on all these multiple different platforms. You can also see our TikTok and Instagram for all the latest reels and shorts. And if you want all of our movie reviews, that's going to be over on our Letterboxd page. So go back, follow us. You're not going to regret it. Well, I think each and every one of you who just listen to us just talk about movies and have fun doing it. We really do appreciate it. Come back next week where we're talking about Ghostbusters, Frozen, Empire. You're not going to want to miss that. We have Nick coming back on. It's going to be a great episode. We always have fun when we have Nick on the show. So I feel like next week could be no different. And there you go. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
And Ernesto Santos. See ya.